Hi, my name is Kate, and this is my mom, Karen, and this is our first attempt at a podcast. Our working name is Kitchen Knitting.
We're in the kitchen.
So that I think our name is a little bit to be determined, but we're going with Kitchen Knitting for now. So welcome. I'm going to let my mom introduce herself first because...
Okay, my name is Karen, and I consider myself still an advanced beginner. I'm making my very first adult sweater, so as far as I'm concerned, that's still beginner knitting. And Kate is my daughter. I'm 24 years older than she is.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you're 24.
No, I'm never going to say ages. I'm not like that. But I'm 24 years older than she is, and she's already more advanced than I am as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely not.
So
I disagree.
I have 3 children. I started off with 2, and then I got a bonus child when I married my husband. And I have 6 grandchildren altogether, and I assume there are no more coming.
No.
We're done.
I'm done.
And I'm home all day, so there's no excuse for me not to have a whole pile of knitting here, but I can't say that that's the case. So, your turn.
Okay. I'm Kate, and I am brand new at knitting. I was thinking that I remember that I tried crocheting when I was very young. I was a crafter for a very long time, and then I kind of started playing video games. So I spent about 15 years as a gamer, and then I realized I had nothing to show for my time, and it really started to bother me, and I was kind of looking for a way to keep my hands busy and to have something to do when I'm around the kids where I can pay attention to what they're doing and not be surfing my phone all the time. I felt like the phone surfing was setting a really bad example, so I thought I had better come up with something that was portable that I could do. And I kind of caught the knitting bug when I walked into a yarn store with a friend and I saw this gorgeous skein and I bought it and I didn't know what I was going to do with it. But I quickly became a yarn snob and now I don't want to use that skein anymore. Why don't you talk about your very first knitting experience?
My very first knitting. I think I got my knitting needles in my Christmas stocking. I remember they were red and they were metal. They were probably 9 inches long. And I got a skein of variegated acrylic yarn. And I knitted and knitted and knitted and knitted. I don't think I purled. I think I just knitted. And I never made anything with it. I had a spool knitting toy that my father made. I think Knitting Nancy's are the modern version of that. But it was believe it or not, sewing thread used to come on wooden spools. I'm that old. And so they put 4 little nails in top and then wound the yarn around. And then I would take a little crochet hook and go round and round and round. And basically made miles of idiot cord. And
That's I-cord?
I-cord, yeah, idiot cord.
Is it really idiot cord,
it really
or is that
is.
your word for it?
No, that's the real word for it.
Is this thing called a Knitty Nancy?
It is now. We didn't call it, we just called it spool knitting then. So I didn't make anything with that, and I knit a little bit in college. I made myself, my brother, a scarf for Christmas. It was about 10 feet long, but he's tall, so that was okay. And tried again, I think, when I saw somebody else knitting, and that didn't go anywhere. And then when I found out I was expecting my first grandchild, I didn't have any choice. I had to knit something, so I didn't have any knitting patterns. I went to the local library sale and got a vintage knitting book that is vintage now. I can't believe it's actually vintage, but it was written in the 1970s. You're not vintage.
No, I'm vintage.
No, but an object would be vintage. You're just a child. So I made a pieced sweater for my very first sweater. So I sewed the little sleeves on with all these bulky seams, and then the hat showed up eventually, and I think he probably wore it once or twice.
No, are you kidding me?
Did he?
Well, the sweater was worn and worn and worn, and the hat, that's the multicolored hat, the pom-pom thing.
No, the first hat was green that matched the sweater.
Oh, okay.
And then after that, I did the other hat.
Pom-pom hat, my husband was wearing recently.
No.
Yeah. It's been stretched out a bit. But hey, it's getting used. Isn't that the point?
That's what's the most important thing to a knitter. If it goes in the closet, it's not so. That's not what it's intended for. And so you're you are starting right off with complicated things. You're not just knitting scarves, you're diving right in.
Yeah, because I've been wanting to make clothing for as long as I can remember, and I always thought that I would have to start sewing, which I am notoriously bad at. And if you don't believe me, I will insert a picture of my living room curtains, which is going to completely disqualify me from crafting when I put this picture in. They're bad.
That doesn't count.
They're bad. No, they're bad. They stay up, but there is some tape involved. So
tape's all right.
Needless to say,
glue works.
Knitting seemed a little bit more accessible than sewing, which I am going to tackle probably, I keep saying in the next 5 years, but I have a feeling it's going to be a lot sooner than that. So yeah, I want to make my own garments because I feel like when I walk into a store, I rarely see things that are me, whatever that means.
And good luck if they're long enough because we're both almost 6 feet tall.
Yeah. So, what's next on our list of things?
Do you want to start with a finished object? Do you want to start first?
Sure. This is not my first finished object. I've made a few things here or there, but this is my favorite finished object, and it's very recent. This is the Pebble Beach shawl by Helen Stewart, and it's in the colorway. What is it?
Rayon Vert.
Rayon Vert. That's Malabrigo sock yarn.
And it means green flash.
Green flash. And this does have a green flash. This is gorgeous. It kind of looks brown from far away, but when you get close, it's like maroons and browns and then quite a bit of green.
It looks rosy over here. It's got some rose.
Yeah. Well, I started with one skein, which was way lighter and maybe has more. It just was not as saturated. The color was not as saturated. And then I kind of switched midway through. I didn't do line or row by row, but I did switch to a brighter skein, and then I finished off with the original one. And the pattern, this is the large size. The pattern calls for a lace weight yarn, but I knit this in sock yarn. So it's actually pretty huge.
It's a nice size.
But I like it. I'm happy with it. I'm thrilled with it, actually, and I want more.
Yeah. Do you wear it around your neck, or do you just wear it on your shoulder?
I've just been kind of wearing it like this. I just like it. It hasn't been that cold. And when it was cold, I'd kind of worn it to work already a few times and didn't want to re-wear it right away. But but it does kind of keep me a little warm. Do you have a finished object?
Yeah. I have my very first pair of socks. They took me almost a year to knit.
That's a kind of record. Yeah. Are you going for?
Well, what happened was I kind of wanted to knit socks, but then I was kind of shamed into absolutely having to do it because I won this yarn. And it's Desert Vista Dye Works, and it's one of the zombie colors. And what happened was Susan from Desert Vista Dye Works put out a call for some inspiration. And I said, well, maybe white with zombie colors would be cute. So I suggested Somebody's Getting Married. And so there were 3 of us, and she picked me as one of the 3, and she changed it to Here Comes the Zombride, and she sent me a skein.
That's awesome.
How could I not knit the socks? I had to knit the socks. When somebody sends you, when the designer of the dyer sends you the inspiration, you need to. So this is Susan B. Anderson, who I love. Susan B. Anderson's How I Knit My Socks. They're gigantic. They're huge.
They're perfect for us with big feet.
Perfect. But there's more foot than cuff. They kind of look funny when I put them in the picture. But, I'm kind of old for zombie colors. I don't watch any zombie TV or anything. So when I looked at the stripes, to me they look like crushed roses. So that's what I had in my mind while I was knitting them. I wasn't thinking zombie blood, guts, and mucus. I was thinking crushed roses. So they're nice and warm. Feel them? They're nice and soft.
They're beautiful. I'm just sitting here thinking, well, my feet are bigger than yours, and you're not going to give these to your husband. So these are, no, I'm just kidding.
Well, the funny thing is I put them on, I took pictures, and I put them on with my Mary Janes, and I couldn't decide if they were more Wizard of Oz or Alice in Wonderland. People complimented me on my shoes.
And I can attest that I think I've seen her feet sticking out from a house a couple. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, that's what I said. Get this house off of me. So anyway, these are my very first socks. And I watched Kristin of Yarngasm, and I laugh because she's got her box of socks, and you're supposed to knit 12 in a year. I knit 1 in 12 months. So I think that's
something.
What's the difference? That's
something.
But I'm going to give it another shot. I like the pattern. The first one.
I love the colors.
The first one went great. The second one was a problem. But when you let that much time go by, there's issues. And I had issues with something else because I let some time go by. But,
And that was not second sock syndrome, you say?
I don't know if it was second sock syndrome because the problem didn't really start until I dove back into to finish the second one. And then for some reason, all the things that went easily the first time gave me a headache the second time.
That happens to me.
I don't know why.
I get it.
Yeah. But I honestly think, I know a lot of people have a lot of projects going. And I know that's the thing, to have a million things going. But for me, personally, if I put things down, things happen. Do we have knitting gremlins?
What, do they come and take your
Well,
stuff?
I'm going to have to show you the other problem. So it's not a problem now, but it was a problem. So I think if you put things away, I think the knitting gremlins come and
Unravel.
they
frog.
You have notes, and you go back and you do things according to the notes, and it's like, why did it happen? First time it was fine. Second time, no go.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's really. Yeah, I knit a Pebble Beach shawl also, but that was in the fall. So this is my most recent finished object.
And your Pebble Beach shawl actually was when I picked it up and realized you weren't going to part with it,
No,
which I understand now. I had to just knit my own. That's the other thing too. I kept admiring all your stuff, and after losing something that you knit for me, I guess I fell into the non-knit-worthy category.
Yeah, well, that
wasn't my fault. I wore it so much in one day. Anyhow,
but I think losing something, you understand now.
oh God.
If you lost that, you'd be heartbroken.
I would be, especially all the hours.
Yeah.
I get it.
Get it now.
So do we want to go on to your next problem, or do you want to see one of my issues?
Why don't we look and see, you have a work in progress?
I do. This bag, all right, can I just talk about this bag? This bag is covered in dog fur, but this pattern is it's made by Radish Top. We found these bags at the
New England Sheep and Wool Festival.
It was the one at the Big E.
Fiber Festival.
And she's called Radish Top, and I can't find an online presence for her. But I love this fabric. It's bees, and I have a strong interest in bees, and so I couldn't find this. I kind of looked on fabric.com to see if I could find more of this, and I couldn't find it. But this is the Lone Star vest. I'm knitting it out of Quince Co yarn in, what's the color? Damsen, which means
it's a type of plum.
It's a type of plum. And this is my first shot at cables. And it was going well until I ended up with, first I found a hole somewhere. I don't know where the hole came from, so I unraveled it. So I got, 1.5 inches, 2 inches of cables.
Well there. Except you're off the needles.
Well, I'm off the needles on purpose because I ended up with an extra stitch.
Just one?
Yeah. I don't know how I do it. I haven't figured out.
One extra stitch?
Yeah, but I completely screwed up my whole. What? So it's off. I've gone back to a place in the cable where I feel like I can pick up, and I'm picking back. So I'm in the middle of picking back up, and I'm so frustrated with having a. Oh God! Don't tell me this. I love it. It's going to be absolutely gorgeous. I will.
Show a picture of it, or are you going to insert?
I'm going to insert a picture of it. It's beautiful. It's got cables in the front, it's got cables in the back, and buttons up the back, so I can't wait to get to the buttonholes. I'll probably be calling you up crying.
No.
I can't wait to wear it, but it may not happen this season.
Now I was looking at the picture of that. That's very pretty. It's cropped. Are
Yeah.
you going to keep it that length, or are you going to make it a little bit longer based on the fact that we're so tall?
Well, I thought about making it longer because we're tall, but first of all of the sizes were the same length. And secondly, I don't have from small to large, that's length.
Normal.
Well, that's what it called for.
But you can make it longer.
But what I was thinking is, I'm probably not going to fill out the sweater as much as someone else would. So I think it will be long enough based on not being able to fill out the sweater in the cabled top area.
Generally, when be careful of your tea, honey. Generally, when sizes go up, length goes a little bit longer.
And this one didn't.
That's unusual. So I would just check that as you're going along.
Yeah.
As you're knitting, just check that, because well, this is not my knitting disaster, but my mother's knitting disaster had to do with cables. Cables take up space.
Yes. And that's what accounts for, because you don't have to really increase in the bust area because it's all cables.
Mm-hmm. My mother spent a lot of time, my late mother spent a lot of time knitting a beautiful fisherman's cable knit sweater, and she was an excellent knitter. But she knit a beautiful cable knit sweater for my father, spent a lot of time on this beautiful sweater, and he was over 6'4". And he tried the sweater on, and it came down to his waist, and I thought she was going to have a heart attack. But that was it. She put it away, and nobody ever wore it again. She didn't wear it. It was huge for her.
Why was the problem? Why did she
short.
wanted it to be longer? Okay.
She wanted it to be longer, and I think because it was knit bottom up, there was nothing she could do.
Well, this is bottom up as well.
So that's why I would suggest, as you're going along, think about it.
Yeah.
Hold it up to yourself.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard. It's kind of hard with the bottom up. But
Well,
I just remember her disaster with the cable sweater being way too short for him, and why she didn't measure him against the, I don't know, because in the old days the patterns weren't quite as well written as they are now.
I was thinking for this one, it just says, stop when it's 12.5 inches or something. Mm-hmm. So I figured I'd hold it up to me before I start the shoulders.
Decreasing.
And if it seems too short, then I'll keep going because I can always stop when I want to.
Okay, so you have another work in progress?
My next work in progress, this is not an exciting knitting bag, it just is functioning as one, is the Waiting for Rain knit along, which there's one going on now that ends in about 2 weeks, and I don't think I'll be able to finish this in 2 weeks. And then Kristin of the Yarngasm podcast is holding one for the month of March. So I figured I'd cast it on now, and if I can I think the Sylvia Bobilvia is her name. I think hers ends in 2 weeks. And if you haven't been on Instagram to check out her most recent finished Waiting for Rain shawl, you have to take a look at it. The thing that's so beautiful about this one is it's a crescent-shaped shawl, and it's all done in garter stitch, and then it's got these, as she describes it, is these kind of tears, but then the tears are filled with lace. But she did a version in stripes, and so the stripes are like torn open and filled with lace, and it's gorgeous. It made me wish that I had planned for 2 colors, but it's beautiful. This is out of the Knitpicks Stroll sock yarn. I bought this to make my husband a sock yarn hat, but the weird thing is this is just like a gray heather, but if you look in really good bright light, it's got a tint of like a maroon in it. And so you can't see it here, but if you go like in really good light, like bright light or outside, you'll see that it's got this like pink kind of tinge. And so I'm like, oh, I better take that one for myself and order a more manly color for Steve.
Oops, more yarn.
Darn. So that's what I'm working on now, and this, and then I've got something else in hibernation, but I'm going to talk about that next time.
Okay.
Because that's in hibernation for now.
Okay. Well, I brought the picture, but you're going to insert a picture
I can do
of
that,
my
yeah.
pour moi. Pour moi means for me.
Oh, I thought I meant pour me.
Well, it's French.
Okay.
But yeah, it was pour me yesterday. It's a style sweater. It's like a boyfriend style sweater in pieces. And I finished the back, and it's got some short rows, which I was doing the German short rows. No problem. I think those are fine. I knit the sleeves instead of doing the fronts first. I don't know where I was going, but I wanted something portable, and I figured this is small, and I could, take a sleeve with me and go. And so I did one sleeve, and of course put the whole thing aside for I don't know how many months. It just sat there looking at me, staring at me.
Well, she bought more yarn? No.
Yeah, of course. So then I picked it up, and I did half of the other sleeve, put it down again. Your gauge changes depending on your mood.
And how cranky you are?
Yes.
And how tense you are?
Yes, absolutely. What's going on in your life can change your gauge. And when I was finished knitting the other sleeve yesterday, I held it up, and it looked like it was about 2 inches longer than the other one.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, but I kept meticulous notes, and that's one thing I wanted to talk about with you is are you keeping notes as you're knitting? No? Well, put them right on the pattern because you can always print another pattern. But if you put them on stickies, you're going to lose them. But I kept meticulous notes to the point where I checked off every decrease.
That I do.
And I went back to my original notes and double checked and made each sleeve exactly the same. This is knit in Knitpicks, Wool of the Andes, non-superwash. It's I'll just hold the color up. It's Camel Heather. And the original sweater, the designer suggested and had knitted the original in Madeline Tosh. I think it was Tosh Merino Light. Or maybe not. This is a sport weight anyway. So anyway, it's a Madeline Tosh. And because it's the first sweater I'm knitting for myself, I figured I might as well be cautious and not spend a fortune because I may not even like it.
Yeah.
So I figured this would be a good work sweater.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of knitting, a sweater that I would wear out somewhere, this could be a sweater I could garden in or clean the house in, but it'll keep me warm.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a wonderful experience having them different lengths. So I put them in to soak, and instead of putting them in cold water, I put both sleeves into warmish water. Not hot, but warm. Pushed them down. They kept floating up to the top. I kept pushing them down, but I didn't agitate. And when I pulled them out, I couldn't tell, so I spread them out on my blocking boards, and I put the longest, one that appeared to be the longest down first. And then, I think I heard this somewhere. I don't know if I made this up. I don't think I'm that smart. But I pinned the other one to match the bottom one exactly. I pinned them together.
Great.
Not that I wanted to stretch anything, but I just wanted to make sure that they started off before they started to dry exactly the same length. Darned if they aren't the same length today.
Good.
I don't know. Is that knitting magic? Maybe. When I wear it, am I going to be like this? I don't know. But I can always push my sleeves up. I'm not really worried about it, but I thought it was kind of interesting after I washed it, soaked it, and then blocked it. I've got 2 sleeves. So maybe if your gauge is just a little screwed up, the other thing I'm thinking is possibly because I knit the first sleeve so long ago, it had a chance to relax.
Does that happen?
I don't know, but I'm wondering is when you're first finished knitting something, maybe the reason we need to soak it and put it into warm water to let it relax. Did you notice how things soften up after you wash?
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if possibly, because I hadn't washed either one of them, I'm possibly wondering just because I had so much time between them, if the first one kind of went, I relaxed, and the second one was still, I've just been knit. Maybe, I don't know, but they're the same now.
Can I feel your forehead? I would think if you hung the first one up, perhaps, but
no.
I don't know.
I know that wet wool is a whole lot different than dry wool.
And it smells a whole lot different.
It smells different too, but and when people knit with superwash, they say frequently, if they don't throw it right in the dryer, they block it and lay it out and go, this is huge. It's way bigger than I thought it was going to be. And then when it dries, it shrinks down to measure.
Oh, if you don't pin it.
Right.
If you don't pin it.
Right, if you don't pin it. So I'm just wondering if that's the nature of wool. If it relaxes after it's knit and then it goes, okay, well, we'll be the same. I don't know, but it works.
Anthropomorphizing wool.
Yeah, well. Yeah. And my second, I don't have the bag for this one. My second work in process is a shawl. And this, everybody knows this bag is,
Dragonflies. Inside.
She always puts a bee on her. So everybody knows her because she always puts a bee pole on.
I love bees.
So anyway, what I'm knitting is Gynx yarn lantern festival. This is sock yarn, and I was going to make socks with it, and then I'm like, it's way too pretty to be made into socks. And it's I can't tell if there is some black in it. There's a lot of dark brown. There's fire colors in it. It's autumny. It's sparkly. But I decided it was too pretty to be made into socks. I saw
especially socks that fit our feet.
Yeah. Well, I saw Kristin.
Could make a Christmas stocking out of it. Sorry.
Well, Kristin of Yarngasm made socks out of it. And,
Yeah,
and when you
I
make socks
saw those.
out of it, I guess because you're going around and around, it really flashed.
Yeah.
Fire flashing. But I don't know what it's going to do because there's some lace. This is called Lighten Up.
Who's that
And
by?
Caroline Wiens.
Okay.
Wiens. And it's a triangular shawl. And it starts with the garter tab, and it starts with stockinette, and then it's got some nice, what do you call this stuff? Mesh, like mesh lace. And it's triangular, and then at the end of the triangle points, you make tassels. She doesn't tell you how to make the tassels. I'm sure we can figure that out. That's not a problem. So,
That's
so I
pretty.
just basically started it, but it's, I figured it would be nice. I wear a lot of black, like you do. And I just thought this would be a nice, it's sock, I've never made a shawl out of sock yarn, so I figured it'd be a nice light shawl for the summer.
Nice.
So that's it for now. Food. This week I decided, whenever there's anything interesting in the New York Times and they say it's gone viral, you know, all the kids are doing it, so I gotta give it a shot. So I did that with the bread that you make in the big cast iron Dutch oven. I did that once. I didn't bother with it again. Do you do that a lot? Or?
I only did it once.
You did it once. So Mississippi pot roast was in the New York Times a couple of weeks ago, and I'm like, well, all the kids are doing it. It's got to be good, right? Well, they think it came out of a church cookbook, which it wouldn't surprise me based on the ingredients. So it called for ranch dressing mix and eau juice mix, but just dry to put in it. And it called for those pickled peppers that you buy. I can't remember the name of them.
Pepperoncini.
Chini. And a whole stick of butter.
Yeah.
And 8 hours in a crock pot. So I don't do crock pot anymore now because I have my electric pressure cooker, which is usually on my counter. It's there almost every day because I just love this thing. So I found basically the pressure cooker version of the Mississippi pot roast, and they said add a cup of water and pressure cook it for an hour. That's a lot. My stew's done in 20 minutes, but this was an hour. So I totally forgot the butter, which is probably just as well. And it didn't really matter, but I put in a cup of water and ended up with a lot of liquid, which I had to thicken. It's about the saltiest thing I have ever tasted in my life.
I bet.
Because I cook salt, but I never add salt to anything. But having 2 packaged processed things in it, that's just not usually how I cook.
Yeah, you need to water that down with something.
Yeah. So if you put
Did you put potatoes in?
Well, what I did was, no, they didn't call for that. I cooked carrots on the side, but what I did was, because I didn't have the pepperoncini, I put in a couple tablespoons of hot salsa.
Now you're going to complain about the recipe, which you got completely wrong, right?
Yeah. I got a little creative. And then I because I didn't have the peppers, I added, I had some frozen red and green peppers, like a half a package of those, threw those in. It's pepper, right? So, but the saltiness is what really kind of got me. But once you shred the meat, well, first of all, I had to put it right back in the pressure cooker again and cook it for another half hour. So it was an hour and a half in the pressure cooker.
Why'd you have to put it back?
Because it was like a shoe leather. It was like a great big shoe.
This should have gone into mishaps. Maybe we just need a section called mishaps. This is sounding like a mishap. Are you going to tell me it was good?
No, usually what I do is I do this kind of stuff when I'm having company. So when it was tender, you shred the meat and then you put it on noodles and you pour the sauce over. The sauce wasn't any good the way it was, so I had to thicken the sauce, which is no big deal. Everybody ate it and they liked it. And we're going to have it again tonight because we had leftovers. But the noodles are so bland. And the meat itself really didn't have any flavor. The whole thing was the sauce. So by the time you shredded it, put it on the noodles, and threw the sauce over it, it was good. Would I make it again? No, I wouldn't. I'm just glad I didn't put the butter in it because that just would have, I would have just put the capper on it between the butter, the fat and the salt.
Yeah.
Fat's good, salt no, not that much. So, but I have to try things.
Yeah.
And I love my pressure cooker, so any excuse to use my pressure cooker.
Yeah, I'm going to have to check that out. I'm pretty uninspired. I tend to get excited about cooking when things are growing in the garden, and there's nothing in my garden. Well, there's things that shouldn't be growing because it's been so warm. So I'm kind of, in the winter, I sort of hibernate and we just kind of get through and we eat frozen vegetables and, you know, it's like I suffer through the winter. I like winter, but I don't like winter cooking. Although I did have a really good kind of accidental recipe. I wanted to throw something together quickly, so I got one of those Trader Joe's pre-cooked pot roasts out. And I've done a similar recipe to the one that you're describing where you kind of, it's like, I think it's ranch dressing or onion soup, and then you do like a can of cream of mushroom soup in the crock pot, and it goes all day, and it's pretty good, but I'm just a little, I try not to use the processed stuff.
Yeah.
So I just did some like carrots and celery and onions and things, and I kind of let them cook and sort of, you know, burn onto the pan a tiny little bit. Well, no, on purpose. I mean, I let it brown onto the bottom of the pan, and then I deglaze the pan with some water, and I use the Better Than Bouillon beef broth, which was really good. And then I went to add ground mustard. I was just adding I added dill and thyme, which I don't know, I was just grabbing things. And then I went to add ground mustard, but I accidentally added ground ginger, and it was so good. So my new favorite, I actually made it again. And I thought this is going to be horrible. I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, get ready, guys. This is one of Mommy's dinners. Everyone kind of came to the table very sadly, and then it turned out to be great. So yeah, my new favorite
Happy accident.
spice combination is dill, thyme, and ginger. And so I've done it again since with the beef broth, and I like to deglaze the pan and kind of make the broth that way. Yeah. And I really like the Better Than Bouillon. It comes in a jar. It's in the bouillon section.
Is that dry, or is it?
It's like a paste.
It's a paste, okay.
And it's organic, which is nice because sometimes I like to buy the bouillon, but I kind of look at the ingredients and I'm like, do I really want to eating that much MSG? No,
like
probably
my
not.
powdered mixes.
Yeah.
I usually eat like that, but it was something different.
No, I mean, I think it's good to try stuff, and I'm not a snob about it. I'm just, I don't know, just trying to be healthy.
Yeah, it's probably not that good to eat that much stuff. So you said there's nothing growing in your garden right now?
Well, there's, I planted garlic in the fall.
Okay.
I thought I was doing a good thing by getting it in October. Prior years, I kind of cracked the ground open in November and planted it, and it did okay. But this year, I thought I'm going to get it in October, and it was warm up until practically the new year, and so it started growing, which I'm concerned about. Garlic needs that cold shock over the winter. It's supposed to kind of go dormant or whatever. But I've got garlic coming up, and I've got tulips and daffodils, and not because it's spring, but because they all started growing last year. So I have no idea what my garlic harvest is going to be like. The other thing I'm going to do in the next 2 weeks is plant peas, because peas are traditionally planted around St. Patrick's Day. So I need to construct some sort of frame with either netting or fencing that the little tiny pea tendrils can climb up, because they really will almost will respond to your touch, the way they grab onto you. But I've tried to grow them up tomato stakes and things in the past, and they really need something fine that they can just latch onto. If peas can grow up a plant, they're happy.
Or fence.
So yeah, so I'm gonna either find some old fence or some netting, because normally when I plant my peas, they don't really climb that well. They fall down. They're always bunched around the bottoms of the stakes or the cages, and then I don't get that many peas. So I think that if I can get them to really spread out, I'll get the harvest that I want, because they're really good right off the vine. They're so sweet.
I wonder if you put a teepee, like I have a teepee up for the beans. I wonder if you put a teepee up and just wrap the fence around it.
That's possible.
Because I don't think a teepee would be enough for them.
I just know that when I've even tried to let them kind of wrap around themselves, like they don't grab on tightly. I don't know. They always end up in a bunch.
They grow better if they grow up.
Yeah. So I need to give them an opportunity to stretch out and really grab on tightly. And I might do some sweet peas just because they smell so good.
The British do those with twigs. They take twigs and put them in the ground, and then the sweet peas grow up the twigs, the little branches. We had enough branches fall last night with all that wind. You should grab some.
Well, they get long though. They're like vines, so they need something to grow up. So I might just grab some sweet peas and throw them in, because they smell so good.
I know.
What about you?
I looked out, I got all excited when I just looked out the window day before yesterday, and I'm like, my hellebore is in bloom. It's not in bloom, it's in bud. It's got these beautiful, beautiful pink buds on. And the snow was coming down. The snow was coming down, and the hellebore was out there. And I thought I had two. I only see one. I might have lost one, but it looks like it's getting bigger and bigger, and they will naturalize.
Will spread.
Yeah. So, and I know you said you don't have them because they're the kids, because they're poisonous.
They're very poisonous. They're great if you have a big backyard with deer. Not that you.
The deer won't eat them, right?
They won't eat them. They won't touch them. So that's a nice thing to.
But it's the first. For me, it's the harbinger of spring because they come up before anything else will come up. All right. What are we watching, reading, or listening to? Are you watching or reading anything interesting?
Well, I'm watching podcasts. I just found Inside Number 23.
Isn't she cute?
I love her.
Yeah.
She's fun. And of course, Yarngasm. All the ones that everybody watches. But I'm not really like.
And of course, you have to watch Chelsea and Sue because they're from Connecticut, like we are.
I know.
They just got started before we did.
I know. I have to go subscribe so I don't miss any
Have you
either.
watched them?
I think you sent me one episode, and it was a while ago. So I think they were like brand new in that time. So I'll have to go find them. What about you?
I'm watching all the podcasts too, and I should write them down. I didn't, but all the standard ones. And next time I will write down what I'm watching. I'm rereading Big Magic. Have you heard of this book? The subtitle is by Elizabeth Gilbert, who wrote Eat, Pray, Love.
Okay.
We both love that one, right? Creative Living Beyond Fear. She talks about makers. She talks about creativity. And she's a little woo-woo with it, but that's okay.
I like woo-woo.
What one of her theories is, and apparently she's not the first one that ever thought of this, but it doesn't matter because she's probably the first one that's written it down in a long time, is that creativity exists. It's out there. It's there. It's just waiting for somebody to pick it up and run with it. And it's funny because I read this book in October.
That's pretty woo-woo.
But I read this book in October, and then I wanted to reread it when we talked about doing this podcast, because before you even mentioned it, I saw Chelsea and Sue come on, and I'm like, this is the first mother-daughter one that I've seen. They happen to be from
Other than the Knitmore girls.
Yeah, but they're in audio.
Okay.
So this is they were the first video mother-daughter, and we had already talked about it. And I'm like, they're from Connecticut, they're mother-daughter, and they beat us to it. And I'm like, so it was out there.
Ah, yes.
And they picked it up first, which I thought was hilarious when I'm reading this book again going, But she also says, just because somebody's done it before doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. Because what if somebody said, well, that book's already been written, or somebody wrote a book already.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or somebody already painted that, or somebody already created whatever. She talks about not just making things, but she talks about a 40-year-old woman who had loved ice skating, and she had tried to become a professional ice skater and had not made it to the pros. And because she hadn't become a professional, she's figure skating, she had stopped skating. And suddenly when she's 40 years old, she knew there was something missing in her life, and she said, I really miss it. And she started getting up at the crack of dawn, because that was the only time I guess she could fit it into her life, because she was working full time. And she started skating again, and she's still skating, and it's a very important part of her life, and she's doing it. And it's so the book being it's creative living. It's not just making things necessarily, although making is part of it. She said we all should be makers if we're not. We should be making something, and that includes people who like to cook. Or people who like to write, or people that have a hobby that they enjoy, if it's figure skating, whatever it is. Don't let it sit dormant on a shelf and then look back in your life and go, boy, I wish I had done that.
Yeah.
So I'm rereading it again. It's a quick little read. You can read it when I'm done with it if you're interested. So this is the latest thing that's on my nightstand. But it's good. Hold the book up again. Big Magic. The other thing before we get on to the bladder, I do also spin with my spindle.
Oh, yeah.
And I kind of forgot to put that on the list. And I wanted to talk about something quickly that I thought was interesting to me, because it's something that I just figured out recently. I'm talking about Micron count for things. I just finished spinning. I spin with my spindle. I don't have a spinning wheel yet. I don't know if I'm ever going to get a spinning wheel. I just don't know if I would have enough time to do everything I want to do. I'm afraid it would sit kind of like my treadmill.
It's a little different.
It's a little different, but you can't hang clothes on a spinning wheel. And the other thing I thought, if I get a really heavy one and leave it downstairs, a really pretty one, then the kids would be playing with it when they come over, and I don't want that. But if I get a small one, I'd be dragging it upstairs, and then I'd be isolated. So anyway, I sit and I spindle, and I enjoy it. But feel the difference between this. Now this is a Falkland. I'm having fun trying different breeds. That's Falkland, and Falkland just means that the sheep come from the Falkland Island, which are islands off of Argentina. And Falkland is a combination originally of Polworth and Merino, which the Micron Count is somewhere between 18 and 33. The camel down, I think, is probably similar to the, this is alpaca. This is the alpaca that you gave me from Eileen's farm. Eileen and Tom have an alpaca farm. The camel down is between 15, and that's over there, but that's between 15 and 22 microns. This is Coopworth.
Oh.
That can go up to 46 to 50 microns.
I don't know what that means, but I think I could use this to scrub my dishes.
Now, but you know what would be great for outerwear? If you were making a ski sweater and it was going to get a lot of friction, don't laugh. Don't laugh.
I don't ski,
you
but
don't ski. But here's the micron. If you think of a micron count of fiber, the lower the micron count, the thinner the fiber. So think of hair. Think of human hair. Think of the difference between, you've seen my husband's hair. It's kind of very, very curly and very thick, very each wiry. He would have a very high micron count, because if you looked at
if you started spinning his hair, I'm out of here.
He's like Cooper. So if you looked at his hair under a microscope, it would be thicker than, say, yours, which is shiny and more
fine.
So this, being softer, has a finer micron count. This is the finest micron count, which makes it even softer. Okay, just
now
like
I can
soft hair compared to coarse hair. Now, if you have something that's made out of very, very soft fiber like alpaca with a very low micron count, it also is going to wear out faster because each hair is thinner, finer. It's also going to pill faster.
Is that true?
Yeah, because as it wears out faster. So as you rub, if you wear cashmere, you'll find you end up with all these little dangly bits, pills.
I hate pills.
Because it's a short fiber and it's a fine fiber, and it wears out quickly. All those little pieces that are coming off are actually wearing your sweater out. You'll eventually have a hole there. So if you wanted a sweater for chopping wood or doing skiing or whatever you're going to, gardening, something where you're going to be using your arms a lot.
I see.
You would use something, this is good for outerwear or something like that. That's why fishermen would wear something like this, something heavy that would repel water and take the wear. But I thought that was interesting because I didn't know about micron count. Here I am sitting there spinning, and I'm like, wow, this stuff is really kind of rough on the hands. But it has a purpose. This is also, the Coopworth is also a meat sheep. So not only can you make an outerwear sweater with it, but you can have it for dinner. Which they do with a Rayon.
Mutton?
Not mutton, sheep, lamb.
What's mutton?
That's an old sheep. Mutton is old.
I'd rather eat an old sheep that was going to die soon anyway.
No, you wouldn't, because it would be tough and strong, where lamb is more mild and tender. So anyway, I thought that was interesting. And this fiber came from Spunky Eclectic, and we bought it at the New England Fiber Festival in Springfield, Massachusetts. So anything else? Anything else happening?
No, I'm just going to tackle these cables again. The thing is, the cabling went fine. It's like you were saying, my first 12, 13, 14, 15 rows of cables went fine, and then all of a sudden it just all fell apart. I don't know what happened, but...
You don't know what happened?
I don't know. Sometimes I end up with extra stitches, and I think when I insert the needle, I'm just inserting it. I don't know. I have to figure out where my extra stitches are coming from.
Are you cabling with a cable needle?
Yes.
You are.
Yes. And I enjoyed it, and it went very well, but I just sometimes end up with extra stitches. I don't know where they're coming from. I tried Googling, how do I end up with extra stitches, and all the ways that are common didn't seem to fit. So I don't know how I'm doing it. I got to figure that out because it's driving me nuts. It happens all the time.
Well, try making a swatch. Have you tried making a swatch? You don't even have to use that yarn. Just to play with the whole cable. How many are you crossing over?
It's a repeat of 2 and then 3 and then 4, depending. Oh God, I'm giving the whole pattern away. Oh.
No, it's multiple. It's different. It's not the same every time.
Right.
That's complicated.
That didn't bother me too much though, but I get extra stitches in garter stitch. It has nothing to do with the cables. It just happened while I was working on cables and made it harder for me to unknit and pick back up because things were all twisted. But where these extra stitches are coming from, I have no idea. I've got another work in progress that's currently in hibernation that is just the extra stitches.
Are you going back and forth between? In other words, if you're knitting with garter, your yarn is always in the back.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going back and forth between stitches where you have to have the yarn in front, like with stockinette?
I read somewhere that
can
mess you up. And that may be, actually, I think I found that in my Googling, and that might be where the ones are coming from. Because with this pattern, I was doing really well because it's really obvious if you're knitting when you're supposed to be knitting and purling when you're supposed to be purling, it's pretty obvious. So that might be, actually, I did think of that and I forgot that I thought that might be it, that when I was going back and forth to knit and purl that maybe I had my yarn in the wrong spot at one point.
That's a sure way to get extra stitches if you don't make sure your yarn is where it belongs when you make that
That might be what I did for that. I mean, that's possible. That's definitely possible.
You gotta try.
But I'm going to work on the waiting for rain. I just realized too that I'm working on all this stuff. It's all going to be ready when it warms up. And so I realized that I probably should be knitting on some sort of schedule. Like I should now be knitting things in linen that I could actually wear this summer instead of waiting till the summer to knit things. So I think I've got to be thinking about my seasons after I finish these 2 objects and start working on stuff that I can wear in the summer.
You almost have to be like a fashion designer would think.
And be ahead.
They're always ahead.
Or behind, which is no fun.
But they're always, I know. So I want to make Christmas things when it's Christmas time.
Yes, the month of December.
It's too late.
Yeah.
I don't want to look at it in July.
Yes.
But some of these podcasters have Christmas in July, and that's pretty smart because they're having a Christmas knit along in July because you get it all done. And then you're like, whoo, I have this. But I would put it away and forget that I had it.
I wouldn't.
But really, the best time to make small items is in the summer when you don't want everything hot on your lap.
Right.
But that's the problem because you want the sweater ready for September.
Right.
Oh, we got to work this out.
We got to figure out a schedule. Just a kind of unofficial, because everything I'm working on now, I'm not going to get to wear until the fall. And who knows with me, if it's anything like my writing, I write something, I think it's brilliant, I go back 6 months and I'm like, that's horrible.
No, but what happens is you get tired of it because you're not going to wear it and you put it away and then you take it out and the sweater's, your sleeve is 3 inches different. So, this is what happens. If you put things away, you either forget where you were. For me, it takes me a while to go really back on. It takes a while to get back into that project again.
Yeah.
If you keep going with it till it's done.
No, I know, but like I'm going to finish, this Lone Star sweater vest that I'm working on. If I don't finish it soon, I'm not going to get to wear it to the fall. Mm-hmm. So the question is, when I bring out my winter wardrobe, I'm like, yay, I forgot about this, yay. I forget about what I've had because it all gets put away. So maybe I'll be thrilled to see the thing that I haven't gotten to wear yet. But then I also think, will all the mistakes stand out? Will I don't know.
No,
so
don't forget about them.
Yeah, I hope so. Because this thing's full of mistakes. I don't even notice them. But yeah. Okay.
Okay, lady. Well, that was fun. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see what this looks like.
I know. I just had this fear that like half of my head is in the frame. Because I didn't have you check. Right?
That's all right. We'll take a look.
I'm a professional when I'm on that side of the camera. Once I'm on this side of the camera, I don't know what I'm doing.
I think it's a wonderful excuse to get together to see you, honey.
Yes. It was good to see you. And my husband predicted that one of us would come out of our first podcast in a body bag, which did not happen. Isn't he horrible? He's horrible.
Think of that?
He's horrible. Yeah. It didn't happen. You gave me a kiss. See?
Of course.
Okay. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching. We might be back sometime.
I know.